Maybe you made a promise years ago. Maybe you said it out loud. You might have said it to your husband or your wife or your mother or your father, maybe your grandparent, a sibling, or your adult child. Or maybe it was simply something you told yourself, but it sounded something like this. I'll never put you in a facility. We'll keep you at home. We'll take care of this ourselves. We'll figure it out. And when you made that promise, you meant it. You weren't being careless. You're not being dishonest. You were making the best commitment you knew how to make with the information that you had at the time. And now you're facing a thought you never expected to have. What if I can't keep doing this? What if home is no longer working? What if the thing I said would never happen is becoming a real possibility? That is where many Christian caregivers start to struggle. It's not because you don't love the person you care for. It's not because you're not willing to sacrifice. It's because the promise you made years ago and the reality that you're living today may no longer agree. Hey, Christian Care Companion. Welcome back to Dementia Caregiver Support for Christians, the podcast where we help you recognize what has changed and help you respond with biblical clarity and faithful stewardship. If you're wondering whether your caregiving situation has changed more than you actually realize, I invite you to visit our new website, dignicarebydesign.com, to determine whether your situation has changed to the point of actually needing to do something different. For a while, most caregivers push the thought away because it isn't what you want. It's not what you planned, and it's not what you promised. So you keep adjusting, you arrange your schedule, you bring in more help, you sleep less, you take on more responsibility yourself, you tell yourself it's only temporary, you tell yourself things like, I just need a better routine. You tell yourself you just need to get through this season. And sometimes the adjustments work for a while until they don't. Then the care needs increase again. The supervision needs increase again. The safety concerns increase again. And the question comes back, not once, but over and over. After another difficult day, after another fall, after another wandering incident, another UTI, another sleepless night, the thought keeps coming back. And many caregivers assume that this returning thought means that they are weak or selfish or unfaithful. But let me ask you a clarifying question. What if the thought that keeps returning is because the situation that you're living in has changed? Because that's what many people miss. The promise may not have changed, but what was required to provide the care has. When you made the promise, you were looking at a particular reality, a particular level of care, a particular need, a particular oversight, a particular responsibility. And at the time, that arrangement probably worked, and you could provide what was required. Your family could provide what was required. The environment they were living in supported what was required, and your system worked. It probably wasn't easy. It likely required a sacrifice, but it still worked. Then, dementia continued doing what dementia does, and it changed your situation. The care requirements slowly increased over time. The supervision requirements increased over time. The safety requirements increased over time. Things that took minutes started taking hours. Things that happened occasionally started happening every day. Situations that were manageable became constant. And eventually, a different question has appeared. Not can I keep my promise, but can this caregiving arrangement continue meeting the needs that we have now? It is not the same question. But this is where many caregivers stay stuck because we continue to evaluate today's situation using last year's assumptions. We keep asking whether we can preserve our original plan instead of asking whether the original plan still accomplishes its purpose. Here is what matters. The issue is not whether home is good. The issue is not whether a facility is good or bad. The issue is whether the current care arrangement can continue to meet the care requirements that now exist. Because once the care requirements have changed, we actually get to a point of making a decision. When 24-hour care must be delivered and the care environment no longer supports the safe or effective delivery of that care, then something different has to happen. Not because we failed, not because we don't care, but because the situation changed. And the Lord does not require us to always follow something when we providentially don't know that the situation is going to change. And that is the part that we miss, right? It's not that we're talking about facility care. It's not that we're talking about that we don't love the person. It is that the requirements of the situation might have changed to a point where it is requiring you to make a different decision. The facility is maybe one possible choice. The real question is whether you can continue with the current arrangement, providing the current level of care that is now required. Because if the answer is no, you cannot, continuing the same way is not going to make this problem disappear. And quite frankly, can be considered foolishness. And it simply postpones a difficult decision. And postponed decisions have a way of returning, and usually with more urgency, usually with more pressure, and usually because of a crisis. And that is why this conversation keeps coming back, because the situation keeps asking a question that you have not answered yet. Can the current arrangement that we are using continue to carry what is now required? Not what I want to be true, but what is actually true. That is the decision hiding underneath this particular question. Now, let's end with stewardship, because many Christian caregivers struggle when they have made this promise early on in the journey. They struggle because they believe being faithful means continuing exactly like they have, no matter what has changed, no matter the cost. And I'm not talking about a financial cost. I'm talking about a human cost, no matter what this situation requires. But stewardship actually asks a different question of you But stewardship is actually asking you a different question in this situation. Stewardship requires responding truthfully to what is actually happening today. Not what used to be true, not what you hoped would be true, but what is true today. And God has entrusted to you more than just that single promise of, I promise I will keep you at home, right? God has entrusted to you your health, your time, your energy, your marriage, your family, your responsibilities, your ability to serve Him faithfully over time. And remember, these decisions are not made in isolation. These decisions are made in context. And all of the context and all of your reality matters, because all of it needs to be stewarded, not just the care of one person. Because there comes a time when the question is no longer, how much can I personally carry? The question actually becomes, what arrangement allows for the most faithful care to continue with all of the factors of my unique situation? Because God puts you in a particular place in a particular time, right? Just like Esther. So, what arrangement best allows for faithful care to continue? That is a different question, and it is a more important one. In Galatians 6 verse 9, Paul writes, "Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary." However, weariness is real. Physical limitations are real. And the need to continue faithfully over time is real. And stewardship does require you to recognize that your role in this caregiving journey is to steward more than just caregiving. It is to steward your entire life. Faithfulness is not measured by how completely you exhaust yourself. Faithfulness is measured by responding obediently to the reality God has placed in front of you. And sometimes that means we continue like we are. And sometimes it means we have to adjust. And sometimes it means making a decision that we never imagined we would have to make because the situation changed. God was not surprised. We might be surprised, but He is not surprised because He is ultimately the one that has changed this. And the hard part of this is He has changed this for our good and the person who's living with dementia's good and His glory. Because maybe the current arrangement may no longer support what is required in this situation. So let me leave you with this question. Have you been asking yourself whether you can keep the promise that you made at the beginning because you made the promise? Or are you starting to ask yourself whether the Lord is asking you to do something differently in your current caregiving situation so that you can be faithful as His child in meeting both the needs of the person you're caring for as well as the needs of yourself in stewarding it well? Because it's not the same question. And recognizing the difference may be the decision point that you now are at. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, I invite you to go to dignicarebydesign.com and look at our new website and see whether your caregiving situation has actually reached a point where the Lord is asking you to make a different decision or even take action for His glory and your good. And as I end all of my episodes, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and I will see you in our next episode.